Hi, I'm Joanna. You might know me from the Joe DeVoe Show, formerly the Hippie Witch podcast. You might know me from Kick-Ass Switch on YouTube back in the day, or way back in the day, Major Arcana TV. You might just know me from Twitter because I like to hang out and chit-chat on Twitter. Today I am here to chat about major turning points, the point of no return, the points on which life turns on a dime and it will never be the same again. Raise your hand if you remember what happened in March of 2020. I am imagining you all raising your hand right now because we all know what happened in March of 2020. The entire world, it seems, went on lockdown because of the pandemic. And at that point, we were all concerned that it might last for weeks. Little did we know it was going to last for months and years, and it was going to change the world as we knew it. The world has changed. I don't even think we know exactly how the world has changed. I think we are still in the process of discovering that globally, but also personally. Like, what did this change in our own lives, and what does it mean for us individually? My personal turning point happened later that year, that fall 2020. There are a handful of major moments in my life that I can look back on and say everything changed at that point. And fall 2020 was one of those points for me. I definitely encourage you to take some time, maybe in your journal or your morning pages, or just talking into your phone or scribbling it out on the back of a receipt, to kind of track what the major significant turning points of your life were, and what were the inciting factors that brought that on. It can be something really amazing, like you meet the love of your life in the grocery store, or it can be something as scary as a global pandemic. It could be a major diagnosis, or it could just be that you reached a point where you were so fed up with your own crap that you finally decided to change, and then there was no looking back from that point forward. That's what my turning point was like in the fall of 2020. So if you don't know, if you're stumbling on this video randomly, or you're just not familiar with my work, I'm an online entrepreneur. I'm a creative entrepreneur. I have created many online courses and digital products, ebooks over the years, and I make my living being creative and hopefully inspiring other people to live a more intentional, creative life. As I used to always say, create the kick-ass life of your dreams. That was the theme for a long time. And it's evolved since then, partly because of what happened in 2020. So bringing it back to that March, when the lockdowns first happened, I feel like I handled it pretty well at first. It was so unprecedented and bizarre, I didn't really know what to make of it. But when I woke up on April 1st, a couple weeks after we went on lockdown, the first of the month is when rent is due. I went to look at my financial situation and saw that $500 worth of patrons had unsubscribed without notice, probably because they were freaked out about money. There were a lot of predictions happening. It was so uncertain what was going to happen next. And I think that they were just trying to be very conservative and wise. And I don't blame them for that at all. But that really got my attention, and I was like, whoa, that feels a little bit scary, because these are people that are extremely supportive and thoughtful, and if they're just like bailing on a dime, maybe something here is happening that I need to pay attention to. And then the rest of that spring, the rest of that summer, more and more people left. Less and less people were buying my digital products, and I watched my income get smaller and smaller and smaller. So by the time fall started to approach, I was in financial panic mode. I was getting scared. And something I had long thought that I would do is take everything I had learned from the 8 years I spent as a coach. A lot of that time I spent doing business coaching, teaching people how to have a personal brand online. This is something I thought I would do far, far, far in the future. It was not something I had immediate plans to do, but I started doing what I call panic creating. I was like, I'm just going to do it now. I'm just going to do it now. And I just started hustling. I whipped up a free ebook that's very good, by the way. I'm not saying what I created wasn't good, but the energy behind it was fear. I was driven by fear. I was working myself to a frazzle, and I was so uncomfortable. And the weird thing is, people were eating it up. They loved the free ebook. They were sending me messages that they couldn't wait to see this BizWitch course that I was creating. And I was truly miserable. I was so unhappy because right before the pandemic, I had started cutting back on my business. I started cutting back on the coaching. I eventually let the coaching go altogether. I started retiring programs and creating less work for myself because I wanted to transition into being a professional novelist. I had this novel that I had written. There's a whole series that I was planning on writing, and I couldn't figure out how to be a single mom and run a business and launch this second career as a novelist. So I had been cutting out and cutting back and kind of freaking myself out a little bit, but daring myself to go for it right before the pandemic happened. And then life was just like, let's put the accelerator on this baby. And it really was confrontational. So you would think I would be happy that people were excited about my new course, but I wasn't. And there were layers to that. It's partly because I was in the process of watching my income dwindle, and here I was about to tell people how to have an online business, and something about that felt fraudulent to me because the future was so uncertain. We didn't know at that point how long these lockdowns were going to go on or how that was going to impact e-commerce or anything at all. So I was starting to feel like maybe what I know is no longer true at this point. Do I really want to teach a bunch of people what I know and have it not work out for them? Because I take a lot of pride in what I share with people, and I want to, especially if they're spending a bunch of money on a course I'm selling, I want it to be valuable and useful. And I want to be able to fulfill the promise I'm making to the people who actually apply it and do the work. So there was that. But even more than that, selfishly, I was unhappy. And I had slipped back into very old behavior that I thought I had overcome. Anxious, driven, working all hours of the night, not sleeping, being very irritable. And keep in mind, during the lockdown, it was just my son, me and my son, alone in our home all the time. So what's not good for me is not good for him. And at some point in the fall of 2020, I did something very radical. I probably hurt my reputation with some people, but I just made a choice for my son and myself, and that was to let it go. I completely, 100% let go. I stopped creating that course. I stopped worrying. I was like, you have savings that can carry you for quite a while, Joe. You still have products to sell. Income is still coming in. The government was giving out checks every once in a while, which helped cushion the blow a little bit. And I just decided to stop the panic creating and just stop hustling. And that was a huge turning point for me and my son. And for 9 months, I swear to you, I lived in this very floaty, flowy, groovy place. My word of the year was groovy for 2020, if you can believe that. A global pandemic happened, unprecedented lockdowns, and my word of the year was groovy. But there really is some magic to the word of the year. And truly, by the end of the year, starting in the fall, I found my grooviness, and it was extraordinary. And because I spent 9 months in that place, it created this new baseline. And I was like, I never want to not feel like this again. So the first time something kind of bumped me out of that groovy flow, I knew I could get right back there. I knew I had the tools, meditation, mindfulness, all the things that I talk about on my podcast and teach other people. I was able to kind of coach myself and walk my talk and get right back there. And it's been a while since then. We're in 2023 now, and I have maintained that ever since. So that was a true turning point for me. And what really sealed the deal was watching how it impacted my kid. So if you don't know, my son has profound autism, and that means that he was nonverbal for much of his life. He is 29 years old right now, and we're still trying to play catch up with communication and, safety issues, all kinds of things. But that is my first job. That is my number one job. And it's my honor to be his mom. I love it. But what happened during the lockdown, when it was just he and I locked in a house 24/7, is I started noticing how alone he was, because he started in the school system when he was like 4 years old. And his life was, getting on a bus, or sometimes I would take him, depending on the situation, going to a program all day long and coming home, being with me, eating some dinner, going to bed, doing it all over again. And the system is really not set up for someone like him, particularly someone who is nonverbal. And it was really hard for him. And I had no idea that he was lonely. And I don't want to get too into invading his privacy, but it wasn't good for him. I realized when we finally had this concentrated time together, and I could see how he blossomed having a mom who was fully present with him, particularly after I let go in the fall, and listening deeply to him and engaging with him and giving him that undivided attention. His language developed so quickly, his comprehension skills. He started asking me, what does this mean? What does this word mean? What does this sentence mean? If we were watching TV, we would have to pause it constantly because he would want to know, like, what are they saying? And I could explain it to him. It was thrilling. It was thrilling, and it was life-changing. It was absolutely life-changing. And I will protect that for the rest of my life, for the rest of his life. I'm going to make sure that I am the groovy mom, that I live in the flow, and that he knows that he can always ask me, what does this mean? And that he is loved. I've watched his nervous system regulate. I've watched him settle down. I've watched him become the person that he was born to be. So now that there are no more lockdowns and life has gotten back to closer to what it used to be, I don't think it will ever exactly be the same. But commerce has begun again in a traditional way. Shops are open, restaurants are open, people are getting back into the busyness of life, and I am not. I'm just not going to do it because my values shifted. I changed. So I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm still a creative person. So how do I maintain the flow and make an income that supports myself and my son? I don't know. So here's what happened. I pray. I'm a prayer. Some witchy people pray. I'm a witchy person who prays. And I was just praying for guidance. I have channeled for decades. I've been a channeler, and just privately for myself. It's not a service I offer to other people. I don't know if I'm channeling my soul, my higher self, God, my guides, creativity itself. But I definitely, some of the products I've created have been channeled, the ebooks in particular. And I decided to pray that I would be guided. What do I create? How do I create it? And last year, all of this stuff started coming through in my morning pages, and it was so exciting. It was such a thrill. If you're not familiar with channeling, whatever's coming through when you're channeling, for me, it was in my morning pages while I was writing, it feels like it's not you. It feels like it's coming from some wiser source, and it's such an honor to be able to like capture that and put it on the page, and you're just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am not this smart. I am not this smart. Wherever it's coming from, awesome. Keep it coming. And I was like, this is going to be a book or a program. I'm not really sure. And it just kept going and going all through the winter. This spring, it just kept going. And I'm like, this is 5 books worth of material. And even up till today, it's not stopping. It's just a constant flow. And I knew at some point I was going to turn it into an online course, but I had no idea how to organize it all, because the way I captured it was in this very sloppy handwriting. It's on paper, ink on paper. It's not searchable. I can't put in a search word. It's just this scrolling, messy handwriting, and it's not all labeled. And so just thinking about that is an overwhelming task. And at some point, I realized this is an opportunity. This is a very good problem to have because I'm never going to run out of ideas. I have tapped into some vein of passion and creativity that is just not drying up for me. I could talk about this for 10 years. And it was in that moment that I got the name for my new online course and the idea to create as I go. So I don't have to create all the material. When would I do that? When would I do that? I don't have the time to stop what I'm doing and create a whole course and then do all the marketing and do this big fancy splashy launch. Those are very stressful, by the way. If you got my newsletter on the 17th, you know what I'm saying. For those of you on the newsletter, I announced the name of my new course and I told you I would be rolling it out slowly and doing this create as you go model. And that is exactly what I am doing here now. It's called Story Plexus, the audacity to create a more meaningful life. And when I say create as you go, this is a model I've actually used before and it worked really well. I used it for the Queen program, which I think was my most popular course to date. It was a lot of fun. A lot of women took that course. And the first group of women to go through it, I was creating the content like a day before it posted or 2 days before it posted. And there was a schedule. So it kind of kept me on my toes, but I was so inspired and turned on by what I was saying. It wasn't hard. It was very flowy and it was just born of passion. And I was like, that felt good. That did not feel like panic creating. And so that is what I'm going to do this time. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be talking a lot about Story Plexus on my podcast and my newsletter. If you want to follow along with me, sign up for my newsletter, follow along with the podcast. You'll hear more about it. This week, I'm going to be doing pre-sales because I am starting July 31st. If you sign up this week, you will be going through the process with me and you can contribute by asking questions, making comments, asking me to flesh something out more. And for anybody who chooses to do this with me this summer, you're going to be saving a lot of money because once it's all said and done and the program is complete, I am then going to be spending my time promoting it and telling people about it because I know how valuable it is. One of the things you're going to learn how to do is how to harness a turning point to make your life better, to make a big change. So after it's all said and done, after the course is created this summer, the price is going to double because that's really what it's worth. So if you want to go through it with me in real time, we're going to be linked up to Discord so we can talk all the time over on Discord and you can ask me questions, give me your feedback. But also if money is important to you, it's technically going to be 50% off of what the ultimate asking price will be. And I'm just doing that as a thank you for those of you who want to be there for the creation process. And I like the energy of it, to feel like we're going through it together, the discovery process together. Although there is an outline and you can check that out, just follow the link around here wherever it is to read all about what Story Plexus is, the audacity to create a more meaningful life. And I hope this kind of got the wheels turning in your own mind about what the different turning points, the major turning points of your life were. And if you're at one now, perhaps, if you're just so sick of the status quo and ready to make a big change, maybe you're just sick of your own shit or a situation you're in, the pressure has finally brought you to this choice point. That's a turning point. That's a turning point. The decision you make at this point will change your life forever. So please choose wisely. Do it mindfully. Don't do it in a panic. Don't do it in desperation. Think about the long-term consequences and how the choice you're making is going to be a reflection of your values and how it's going to impact your lifestyle going forward and then the lifestyle of everyone you share your life with. For example, it could be your husband, your wife, your partner, your kids, your parents, your coworkers, whoever matters to you and you're dealing with on a daily basis, when you make a huge change, or just simply, like I did, kind of a change from within, where you just let go and who you are changes as a fundamental level, believe me, it will impact everyone in your life. They all will feel it. And that's exciting. That is good. That is something to celebrate. So I'll be back. I'll be talking a lot more about this, and I wanted to give you a heads up about that. Let me know if you have any questions. And until we meet again, always remember, life is change. Change is magic. Magic is life. And the journey is the creation. Much love to you.